just before 10 p.m. on May 15, 1986, in a small home just outside of Albany, New York, a home invasion robbery ended with an elderly couple dead. Well, 2.5 years later, and over 1,000 miles to the south, a woman in a meditative state found herself experiencing those very same murders, as if she were the victims. It was not a beautiful day. 12-year-old Bengelia was outside playing when the skies turned bad, and she did not see the tornado. By the time that she looked up, it was too late. She was sucked up into the skies, and her family found her in a field quite a ways away a few days later. She was covered in dirt, and her eyes were crusted over with sediment and hard rock. Well, she was cleaned up, and time went by. But not being able to afford proper medical care, her eyes became infected, and then she eventually went blind. It was right around that time that she began having those dreams and visions about the future. In the beginning, most of her dreams were just mundane, and they all centered around the small village that she lived in. But soon, they became much larger, like the time that she helped locate missing soldiers, or when she predicted the outbreak of World War II. All of this, of course, is just urban legend, wrapped around a fact here or there. Mind you, her followers, of course, would say it is all true. Well, however it happened, she did lose her vision, and she became known as Baba Vanga. And as she got older, she gained fame and notoriety for seemingly being able to correctly predict future events. Her predictions became so famous that people started gathering outside of her house, and they would wait for days just to get a chance to touch her, or even see her. It got so bad that the local municipality had to get involved and do crowd control. She's noted for having predicted such things as 9/11.
Horror, horror. The American brethren will fall after being attacked by the steel birds. The wolves will be howling in the bush, and innocent blood will be gushing.
On September 11, 2001, the Twin Towers in New York City were attacked by what many could consider steel birds. And of course, George W. Bush was the president at the time. And there's a huge conspiracy theory out there that George Bush was somehow involved with the attackers. So hence the phrase, the wolves will be howling in the bush. Seemingly, she also predicted the sinking of a nuclear submarine 20 years before it happened.
At the turn of the century, in August of 1999 or 2000, Kursk will be covered with water, and the whole world will be weeping over it.
On August 12, 2000, the Russian submarine Kursk sank, taking 18 lives to the bottom of the sea. And she's been credited with predicting a slew of other things as well, from the death of Princess Diana to the election of Barack Obama. So, curious, I did a quick search on Baba Vanga myself, and to my surprise, several sites say that she had an 85% success rate with her predictions. And of course, she's not the only one to seemingly make accurate predictions about the future. Many people say that psychic Jean Dixon predicted the election and assassination of John F. Kennedy. Psychic Sylvia Brown seemingly predicted the outbreak of the coronavirus. In this video, we're going to consider the possibility that psychic powers just might be real. And to do this, we'll be looking at a murder case from the 1980s. Jacob and Dora Cohn were murdered in their home by an unknown intruder, and the police were stumped. We'll take you through how the detectives followed leads that seemingly went nowhere until they finally reached out to a psychic named Noreen Renier, who, shortly after they met, showed them exactly who the murderer was. This case was fascinating because during one of the visits that the police had with Noreen, she dropped into a meditative state and then actually watched through the victim's eyes, first Jacob, then Dora, as they were in the process of being murdered. Well, after we discovered that, we reached out to Noreen and she shared with us exactly what it was like to experience that moment. Then stick around for our Fact or Fiction segment. There, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on this case, and then Amy is going to come on, and she's going to share scientific evidence that the brain actually changes during a psychic trance. So, this report begins, of course, with a murder.
This is your killer.
The place? Colony, New York. Address? 2 Undine Street. Here, in this modest little home. It was just before 10 p.m. on May 15th, 1986. Marge had called her mother, to chit-chat, tell her about her day, things like that. But the phone call was brief, maybe 2 minutes, and then her mother just stopped, right in the middle of a sentence, and called out to her husband.
Jake.
Then there was a commotion, a scuffling. Then, nothing. Not even a dial tone. The call came into the police department at 9:55 p.m., and a few minutes later, Patrolman Fitzsimmons arrived at the house. It was dark and quiet. The side door was slightly opened, and it looked like it had been busted, so Fitzsimmons looked through the opening, and he could see a dark figure of what looked like to be a woman on the kitchen floor. Well, a killer could still be inside, so he waited. 2 minutes later, backup arrived. Officer Rinaldi pulled up, and the 2 men searched the house. They found Dora's body on the floor in the kitchen with a chair on top of it, all tangled up in the phone cord, as if she had been on the phone when it happened. Sticky blood was still oozing out of the back of her head from a gunshot wound. Further inside, they found her husband, Jacob's body, laying face up in the hallway. He had been shot in the face. Well, they searched the rest of the house, and it was empty. A little while after they stretched police tape around the house, Margie, Dora's daughter, pulled up. She was frantic, wanting to know what had happened. Well, of course, the police held her back, but she was in tears. Then, just 5 minutes later, Margie's adult son, Jimmy, arrived. Margie had called him shortly after the commotion, right after she had called the police. Well, being a good son, he held her and did his best to console her as they both wondered what in the world was going on, fearing the worst. From where they were, they could see that busted-in door, and the fact that neither Jacob nor Dora were anywhere to be found spoke volumes. While they were there, police got statements from both of them. Margie shared how she was on the phone with her mom when it happened, and Jimmy stated that he was having dinner with friends. Well, shortly after that, they discovered the horrible truth, and neither one of them could believe it. Who would want her mother and father, his grandparents, dead? It made no sense. The next day, the police launched a full-scale investigation.
There were probably over 100 names on the suspect list. All the neighbors were interviewed, all the alibis were confirmed. We looked at family, relatives. We tried and got some information from the daughter and the son to see if Jake and Dora had any problems with people or if there was any reason anyone would want to harm them.
While the detectives were searching the house, they found a bizarre newspaper clipping about a family who lived just down the street. Well, this was out of the ordinary, so the police interviewed them, but they were quickly ruled out. Then the police got a lead on a suspicious character who had been seen out having drinks with Jacob. This person, only known as Frank, was listed in the report as a hippie type about 40 years old, so the police began searching for Frank, and they were eventually able to identify him as Frank Rogg. Well, they met up with Frank Rogg, and they found out that he had a pretty solid alibi, so he too was scratched off of the list. Then at one point, Margie shared how some mystery person had dumped a truckload of garbage onto her parents' lawn and splashed black paint onto their house one night before the murders. This lead also ran to a dead end. Well, eventually, all of the leads that the police had were chased down, and all of them went nowhere. Weeks turned into months, months turned into years, and then this case went cold. And just when it looked like it may never be solved, Detective Krolak received a rather interesting package with an unconventional request from Margie.
This is your killer.
It was mid-October 1988, over 2 years since her parents had been murdered, and Margie was flipping through the pages of the National Enquirer when she came across an interesting story about a cold case homicide that had eventually been solved. Well, it made her think about her parents. And as she read further, she discovered that the success of the case had been attributed to a psychic named Noreen Renier. And the more she thought about it, the more she felt that maybe this psychic could help solve her parents' murder as well. So, on October 17th, 1988, she made her way into the police station and she spoke to Detective Krolak. Detective Krolak was old school, and he really didn't believe in all of this psychic mumbo-jumbo. But it had been 2 years, and he was no closer now to solving the case than he had been when he started. So he took the magazine, and he told Margie he'd look into it.
With the news articles, there was the name of a Bronx homicide commander who had used her before. I contacted him and he advised me that Noreen was credible. So I contacted Noreen by telephone. I was careful not to give her too much information.
Noreen listened to him, and then she gave him more references for him to call and check out. As we stated in the beginning of this report, we reached out to Noreen, and she called us.
So, Noreen, how did it go when Detective Krolak called you?
Detective called me and introduced himself as Detective Krolak, and he was working on the case, Jake and Dora.
I just told her it was a double homicide in Jake and Dora's names. She requested that we send some items of the victims.
Detective Krolak mailed Noreen a couple of personal items of Jake and Dora's. The idea was that once she received it, they'd speak on the phone again while she was holding the objects to see if maybe she could possibly pick up any information about the murder.
So Detective Krolak sent you a package, right? What exactly was in the package?
They sent me a box, and when I opened it, it had a dried blood over some glasses, and then a belt that again had blood on it.
I have to say that Amy and I were pretty jazzed that we got this conversation with Noreen. We're still a small channel. She's world renowned. And I found her to be a very interesting person. And I don't want to sound weird here, but it did seem like she was overly connected with the universe. During several parts of our conversation, as I asked her to remember this horrific crime scene, she seemed as if she was reliving it. And several times she asked us to stop because she became very emotional.
When Detective Krolak's call came in, I had already opened the box, and I had laid everything out to be ready to start as soon as he called. I had seen the bloody glasses from Dora and the belt from Jake. I put them separately so they wouldn't mess. I had meditated several minutes before my session. The box had been opened, but I started to meditate and program my mind. When the detective calls, I will be answering his questions as clearly as I can. I will answer all his questions the best I can. So I'm programming my mind during the meditation about what I'm to do. The phone rings. Press the button and lift the phone to say hello.
Noreen settled into a meditative state and then seemingly began picking up impressions of the murder scene. Lieutenant Krolak recorded the conversation and made a transcript. As he sat there listening over the phone, he was completely unprepared for just how accurate she was.
I see wherever this happened, it was close to the street. It was an older structure, and there's a stone building nearby.
Accurate, and the stone building correctly described the garage.
Something is wrong with the floor. It's a different texture.
Floor tiles were coming loose.
I see a man. He has a big nose and a round face.
She accurately described Jake.
There's a wooden door with a window beside it. Someone came in. There's a struggle. They don't have a chance. Jake! Jake!
Noreen correctly described the door the killers went through. Dora called out Jake twice. That's what Margie heard on the phone.
A man is gagging for blood.
Jake was shot in the face. The blood was running down his throat while he was dying. I made arrangements to fly to Florida.
This is your killer.
On December 6, 1988, Noreen answered the door and met in person two men, Detective Krolak and another man who had also been in on the conversation over the phone.
Two detectives were at my door. One is tall and thin with dark receding hair. The other was more husky, more blondish. He was Lieutenant Krolak. Had a really great smile. The other one never seemed to smile.
The other man that she was talking about was Detective Alan Rower. He worked with Detective Krolak, but he was also a forensic hypnotist. The plan was for them to hypnotically regress Noreen, making it easier for her to drop back into the scene of the crime. While in Florida, the detectives met Noreen more than once and had several sessions.
I had two theater seats, two here and two there, and a table between us. And they sat on that side, and I sat over here, and the tape recorder was between us. We stopped. Detective Krolak, once we became relaxed, asked me to go into my psychic mode. And then he asked me to be Dora. Tell him what I saw. Dora was sitting down, and I could hear more than one voice. I could hear her voice and another woman's voice. I don't know how I could do two voices, but then all of a sudden, someone comes into the room, and she said, I know who that is. You've been here before. What are you doing here? Then all of a sudden, I hear her yelling for her husband. Jake, help me. And I'm looking in a house to try to find Jake. There's Jake. He's sitting down. He's reading a newspaper. He hears Dora yelling. He throws the newspaper down and he grabs something. I don't know what it is. It's long. It's big. He grabs something and he runs down the hall, and I can feel the bullet. He shoots me. Then all of a sudden there's silence. And then Noreen, I see her on the floor. I see her lying on the floor.
This session was rather intense, and so was the next one. Detective Krolak took notes, and so did Noreen's assistant, so we have a running transcript. The next scene is our rendition of what it might have felt like emotionally to go through this.
Noreen, become Dora for me. What are you doing when you're killed?
I'm on the phone. I'm talking to a woman. I don't know what she's saying. I don't know. He came in.
Who came in?
The man that kills me. It looks like he's rushing in for some reason. He's agitated.
So, do you know him, Dora?
Yes, I've seen him before, but he's not supposed to be here now. What do you want? What are you doing? Why are you here?
Dora, what's he saying to you?
He's got something in his hand. He's coming fast. The gun is there. He's mad. I fall down.
Don't die on me.
I'm shot. I'm hurt.
Are you dead, Dora?
No, I'm almost dead.
Dora, if you're dead, can you float?
Yes, I'll float. Then I won't hurt. I can see the back of the man.
In the next segment, Noreen remembers becoming and then dying as Jake.
This is your killer.
I want you to be Jake now.
I'm Jake. I'm breathing. I hear some noise. I get up.
What do you hear, Jake?
I hear Dora scream. Going to get something. Gotta get a gun. Gotta get something. A weapon.
Why do you need a weapon, Jake?
Because I heard Dora scream. Heard a crash in the other room. Gotta get something. Maybe in the hall, near the door, there's something I can get. There's something long.
Who is it, Jake? Do you know him?
Yes.
Do you know his name? Is he a friend of yours, Jake?
I see the man. The boy.
Where's Dora? Are you still alive, Jake?
Barely. I see him going out the door that he came in. Why is he trying to kill us?
Are you dead now, Jake?
Yes, I'm dead.
With the murder fresh in her mind, the detectives went back to their hotel, and when they returned, they brought 10 photographs of people that they believed had the weakest alibis.
I don't want to see the pictures, I told Detective Krolak. I want my hands to pick up the energy of who's involved in this case. Just put the pictures face down, and I'll go over and tell you which ones are involved. There's a lot of them here. I don't think they're all going to be involved. And as I put my hand over the picture and I didn't feel the right energy, I would just push that picture away, push it away. In the end, there was only 3 pictures left. So I took my time and went through each picture very slowly. And then finally, I just picked up one picture. It showed, I didn't look at it. I just showed it to him and said, "This is your killer."
That photograph that Noreen had handed to the detectives was of a man named Robert Skinner, and it was later discovered. Now, are you ready for this? That Skinner had actually made a plan to commit this crime with a man named Jimmy Mariani. You remember him? He was the man who showed up just minutes after the murder to comfort his mother outside of his grandparents' home. Well, with this new information, the detectives went back to New York and took a closer look at Skinner and Jimmy. Although he had a sound alibi, evidence showed that Jimmy Mariani thought that he could maybe make some money by robbing his very own grandparents. So he enlisted the help of 2 friends, Robert Skinner and Keith Snare. Together, the 3 of them planned out the robbery. They were hoping to get about $2,000 in cash. Police believe that Jimmy alibied himself by having dinner with a friend, while Bobby Skinner and Keith Snare wore masks to the house. The 2 men gained entry by kicking in the side door. Jake was sitting in the living room, and he heard the commotion, so he got up and grabbed a baseball bat and confronted them. There was a struggle, and Jake removed Bobby Skinner's mask, so Skinner shot him in the face. And since Dora was there, well, she had to be shot and killed as well. Ultimately, Skinner got 62 years, while Snare and Mariani each got 40.
This is your killer.
So, did Noreen actually tap into some unknown force and help the police solve this murder? I don't know. They were stumped, and after just a single phone call, Detective Krolak did decide to make the trip from New York to Florida. He also started out as a complete skeptic, but ultimately he ended up believing that there is something to these psychic powers. Skeptics, of course, would say that there is no such thing as psychic powers and that the detectives were just duped. Either way, the evidence eventually gathered against Jimmy, Skinner, and Snare was solid. Amy discovered scientific proof that the brain actually does go under a physical transformation during psychic meditative trances. It's pretty exciting because we're at 4-4.
No, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
4th season, 4th episode.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So what do you have for us today?
All right. Well, I looked into a study that was done to try to determine if something in a psychic's brain changes when they are using their psychic abilities. And I found this study by, I believe his name is Dr. Andrew Newberg, and it was from 2012. And what he did was took these psychics that have a specialty. They're called psychic writers. What they do is they channel their energy and connect with someone who has passed on. They connect with a spirit. They get into this trance-like state, and they allow that spirit or dead person to write through the psychic medium's body.
Not me.
It's called psychography. And apparently what they write is absolutely legible. It is a full narrative. It's not, just some scribbling or something, kind of just random sentences. Apparently it's coherent. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So what this doctor did was gathered psychics, and he had them in one session write as they would normally write. So say they, often write about psychic abilities or what it's like to do this, right? And then they were injected with a dye, okay? And then they did neuroimaging to see what did their brain look like when they were doing this writing. And then he did it again But this time, each psychic got into that trance state, that deep state.
Yeah.
They, spoke with someone or connected with someone from the other side, and they followed the same process. They were injected with dye, and then they used neuroimaging to see what their brain looked like. Okay.
What happened?
Yeah. Well, I found the results absolutely fascinating, because during the time that they were just writing like normal people would write, they found that what they predicted, right? There's activity in the frontal lobe, there's activity in the planning, in the processing of language, and there's also activity in the hippocampus with the emotional parts of the brain. Well, when they looked at the scans from when the psychics were in a trance-like state, everything was much, much lower. The activity in the frontal lobe was much lower. The activity in the hippocampus, the emotional region of the brain, much lower.
Really?
Yes.
It's like they're not using their own brain.
You just made me get a chill go up my spine.
Yeah,
I was
yeah. So that's freaky.
And I thought, well,
so this is a legitimate study.
Absolutely. And this doctor said more studies need to be done based on the results. He's not trying to say, see, this proves it. He's like, well, there's something going on here.
That is freaky.
We need to look more deeply.
Right.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
Not what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah. This, I tell you, we have these talks, and you always bring some pretty cool information. That one's, I don't know how to process that.
Yeah.
So it seems like the brain function would be higher if you're trying to lie,
right,
or make up stuff from another person.
Right, exactly.
So how could it get lower, right? There's less brain activity going on, yet you're writing about someone else's life.
Right. And it's a complete narrative.
And it's legible, right?
Exactly. It's a complete narrative. It absolutely readable.
That's weird.
Yeah, I found it very interesting, and it made me want to, follow up and try to find out, has anybody else done more studies on this? Like, I want to see more studies. So
yeah. So you got the police report. Right. You read a lot of information. We talked to Noreen for about an hour or so. So I take it you believe that there's something to this case.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, I read transcripts, I read police reports, I watched interviews with some of the detectives, and these detectives were truly baffled at what Noreen was able to tell them happened at a crime scene in half the country away.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the time when everything is all on the internet 2 hours or an hour after it happens.
Right.
There was none of that. So I found that very interesting, and I feel like for sure she had some connection. I don't know exactly how she does it, but she absolutely was able to key in.
So what do you think about the fact that a world-renowned psychic was on our channel? We're still brand new. We're a tiny channel. She comes on our channel, and you know what blew me away? I mean, we didn't have time to put everything that she said into the report, but at one point in the conversation that we had with her, she said that everybody has this power.
Yeah, she did. I found that really interesting. Can we play a clip? I think we still have a clip of that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I first discovered this ability, I didn't know what to call it. I thought I was special. And then I went to Duke University and found out we all have it. The people that sweep the White House lawns, or the people that drive the taxi cabs, the cook. It's a part of our mind that our society does not teach us how to use it.
Okay, but so my question to you then is, if we all have it, how would someone like Amy or I, or maybe my subscribers, go about accessing it? What could we do that would be psychic?
Who knows? But each person is wired a little differently. Like, we could all draw, but come on, are you going to put my paintings in your room? No way. And we all can be psychic, but there's different ways. You don't need to solve a crime.
So what do you make of that? Do you think that we honestly really have the ability to, I don't know, be psychic?
I think she is spot on there. Yes, I absolutely do. When she talked about things like we have gut instincts, right? We have those times when our gut tells us like, red flag, don't go on a date with that guy, or you should choose this as your career path or whatever. And then we don't listen to it, right? We dismiss it as, no, it's just a gut instinct. It's not important or it's not valid. And we try to use our logical mind. I think that we just suppress exactly what she's talking about, saying that we all have.
Yeah. Wow. I think we should end it right there. That was great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I thought this case was fascinating. Do I have psychic powers? If I do, I don't know how to use them. But this case did remind me of the Elizabeth Cornish case. According to police records, sometime after 1 a.m. on Saturday, August 8, 1987, an unknown intruder snuck into her apartment and murdered her. The police first thought that maybe the perpetrator was her boyfriend, but they found out he had a pretty solid alibi. So Detective David Heater enlisted the help of psychic Nancy Weber. The case is extremely interesting. We did a complete report on it, and if you'd like to see it, it's here.
So I wonder how many people watch to see if we do bloopers. I do bloopers all the time to this part because I'm terrible on camera.
No, you're great. You're great. We don't ever do bloopers. We never make a mistake. Crap. Let's do it again.